Hey everyone, my name is Brian Hilbert. I've been a fly fishing guide for 20 years now and currently guide doing walk and wade trips and float trips here in Colorado and Wyoming. Super pumped to be with AvidMax today and tie some of my patterns that I've come up with over the years. I've fooled trout all over the Rockies with these patterns we're going to tie. These are some of my most confident fly patterns for fooling trout, both on technical tailwaters and freestones. If you'd like to get in touch with me or have questions about the patterns or would like to book a guide trip, you can find me on Instagram at Brian C. Hilbert, or you can contact AvidMax. I'd love to get in touch with you guys. Let's get into tying. Really pumped today to be here with AvidMax and tie my Day Saver Baetis for you guys here. I'm a guide here in Colorado and in Wyoming, and really guide all over the state and up on the North Platte, Miracle Mile, Gray Reef area. And the fly I'm going to tie for you guys today is my Day Saver Baetis. This is a fly I've been fishing for quite a while now. It's gone through an extensive amount of trial and error, and I really have kind of settled on this design here in the last few years. What I'm going for is a realistic, durable, slender blue wing olive nymph imitation. You can always also tie these in a PMD colorway. I do them in purple sometimes, but the blue wing olive is what we're going to do today. What I was really looking for with this is a lot of our mayfly nymph imitations are really, in my opinion, too bulky. If you take insect samples and look at a blue wing olive nymph, it's an extremely slender and delicate insect. And what I wanted to achieve with this pattern was to have this really slender abdomen, slim profile, dark wing case, and utilize synthetic materials that aren't going to fall apart after catching a couple of fish. So this is kind of what I ended up with. You can fish this before, during, and after a blue wing olive hatch. It's absolutely devastating in the springtime and again in the fall. We're kind of late fall, early winter right now, and this is still working great on our local waters here in Colorado, and super pumped to tie for you guys. We're going to jump right into it here. All right, so for a hook, you can use Tiemco 101 or 100. I kind of like the straight ring eye hook on these. And again, this pattern utilizes all synthetic materials, which are going to be more durable. For a thread, we're going to start with some 6/0 Uni. This is a olive dun. And I'm going to come in and start my thread at about the 2/3 mark here with just a simple jam knot. I'm going to trim off my excess. And to keep that really slender profile on this abdomen, I want to make sure that I'm utilizing flat thread wraps. And the way I'm going to achieve that is I'm going to uncord my thread. Now this thread is composed of several small fibers that are twisted together to form a rope. What we can do is, if you look down at your bobbin and twist counterclockwise, that's going to uncord that rope and get this thread to lay flat. You can see there it's got that flat nature, which is going to make this not build up a lot of bulk and still give us that smooth body. All right, so we're going to tie in this tail, and I really like utilizing this Veevus body quill in my mayfly tails for a couple reasons. Number one, it's a very durable material. It's also very sparse and adds a little bit of translucency. If you look at a real mayfly tail, it is not an overbearing part of its makeup. You can hardly even see that it's there. So I want to make sure that my imitation is matching that feature. I'm going to grab a strand of this Veevus body quill, and I'm just going to make a wrap right where I started my thread and pull that into place. Capture it with a turn with my flat uncorded thread. I'm going to lift up on this Veevus body quill, kind of barely pulling it to me a little bit, but still keeping it up to keep it on top of the hook shank. And I'm going to wrap rearward until I'm to right at the bend of the hook there. I'm now going to return my thread to the starting point. And a good discipline to help yourself not crowd the eye on your patterns is to always make a starting point at the front of the abdomen, so you know not to go past that with your thread. It's very common with new fly tyers. I teach a lot of fly tying classes, and without a doubt, the number one thing that beginner fly tyers do that is a mistake is they end up crowding this eye, and they'll tie this incredible fly, but they'll get up here towards the hook eye, and all of a sudden they've run out of room, and you're trying to cram the end of the fly on there, and you end up going over the hook eye, and just the fly doesn't end up being fishable. So a good discipline is to start right there at the 2/3 mark where your abdomen is going to end, and never bring your thread past that until you're ready to do the thorax. So now we're going to build a little bit of a taper with our thread. Again, I've got that thread uncorded, and we want to keep this slender. The sequence I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap rearward about 3/4 of the way. I'm going to wrap back forward. We're going to do just touching thread wraps here. I'm going to give it a little counterclockwise spin. Then go to the halfway mark, 50% mark on that abdomen. Back forward. Give it another little spin. And then we're going to go to the 1/4 mark and then back where we started. And you can see what that's done is it's given us a nice gradual taper, really imitating that tapered abdomen that the real blue wing olive mayflies have. We're now going to wrap just flat touching turns all the way to the tail again to smooth everything out. I'm going to lift this tail up, come underneath, about like so. And I like to turn my vise to the side right here when I get ready to do this next step. What we're going to do now is put the rib into the body, and it's going to be a thread rib. And opposite of what we did to flatten our thread, what we're going to do is cord this up by, when I look down on my bobbin, I'm going to spin it clockwise. So now we're tightening our thread like a rope. And the reason I like to turn this to the side here is it doesn't, it eliminates the risk of my bobbin kind of crashing into my vise and allowing it to spin freely. It also doesn't risk my thread falling off the back of the hook and me having to start over. It doesn't disturb the tail at all. It just makes it a real quick and seamless process to tighten this up. I like to keep cording this up until I see my bobbin start to rise up. You can see it's raising up a little bit. That way I know it's good and tight. And we're going to return that vise to the normal position and then come forward with our thread in open segmenting turns, just like you would with a wire. We're going to just palmer this forward, and you're going to see a real subtle segmentation be built into that abdomen. We're then going to uncord our thread, and we're going to switch thread colors here. Now you want to make sure that you uncord this thread real good after it's done being really tight. The main thing is if you try to whip finish thread that's all corded up, that knot is not going to seat well, and it's actually a lot of the times going to break on you. So I'll just uncord it a few spins, and we're going to give it a good 3-turn whip finish. We'll trim that guy off. We'll take this opportunity to trim the tail. I like that to be about the length of the abdomen. And we'll kind of fray those materials out there, and you can see that's got a nice kind of translucent, very sparse tail, really what I'm looking for there. Now for durability and to add a little bit of sheen and to help that segmentation pop, we're gonna coat the abdomen here with some Solarez bone dry. You can certainly use whatever thin UV resin you prefer. I like this bone dry because it is so thin and it cures really rock solid, and will make this fly darn near bulletproof. I'm gonna give that a couple of seconds to soak in, and then I take my finger and I'm just gonna dab around the body to pull off a little bit of the excess. And you can see what that does to our segmentation is it really makes it pop a little bit there. And it's also, like I said, gonna prevent trout teeth from pulling it apart and having this fray on you. I'll use my rotary feature to just spin around and cook this with my UV lamp. Make sure that's nice and cured. All right, so the next thread we're going to use is some gray Adon. This is a little thinner diameter. I'm going to start it right behind the hook eye, wrap rearward, and trim off my excess. For the wing case, we're going to use some black Fluoro fiber. Now, a tip I want to give you guys when it comes to tying in the wing case, I have a lot of clients and other guides that tie this fly, and they send me pictures, and they want some criticism. The number one mistake, aside from rushing the eye, is going to be using too many fluorofibers for the wings and the legs. And this is just black fluorofiber, comes in a bundle like so. What I'm going to do is on a size 20 like we're doing today, I like about 12 to 15 of these black fluorofibers, and I'm going to cut them off at a flat edge right there. I'll kind of make that easier to tie in. And I'm going to uncord this thread just like we did with our olive thread. And what that's going to do is when I lay this on the back of the hook and I come to capture this, if I give it a little bit of slack, you can see my thread is jumping rearward since it's uncorded. And that's going to make it a little easier to grab those tips and capture as I come rearward. Now this is just going to be a thread thorax. So we want that thread to be nice and flat, just like we did with the abdomen. I'm going to wrap rearward here to about that 1/3 mark. It's important to get that proportion correct. Mayflies as a whole are pretty much going to be 1/3 thorax, 2/3 abdomen. And I'm going to build almost like a little bit of a football shape here with this gray thread. I want it to taper where it's thickest at the back and starting to thin as it goes forward. We're going to stop right there behind the hook eye. I'm going to pull my wing case forward and make sure that that's where I like it. It looks pretty good. Now, we're going to secure everything off at this point. Now, to prevent yourself from overcrowding this hook eye, we want to use minimal thread wraps here. And if you do this tie-off sequence that I'm about to show you, you'll end up with a perfect neat head every time. The first thing we're going to do is pull this fluorofiber forward right behind the hook eye. I'm going to angle it slightly to me, and I'm going to come around with my opposite hand and capture that with 1 turn of thread. I'm going to turn it towards me and make sure that that's centered on top. You can see there we got a nice black dark wing case, just like the naturals, and I've secured that with 1 turn of thread. Really make sure that we just do 1 turn of thread there. The next thing I'm going to do is split these remaining fluorofibers going out the front. You can just roughly eyeball it or do it by touch. You don't need to count them. That feels about even there. And I'm going to take this far side, which is towards you. I'm going to pull that to the far side of the hook. I'm going to use my bobbin to capture those with 1 turn of thread. And then I'm going to take this remaining clump towards me and angle it backwards and capture that with a turn. So we've captured the wing case and the legs on both sides with just 3 turns of thread. Now to finish the fly off, I like coloring the head with either a red or an orange permanent marker. You can certainly skip this step. It really doesn't serve any purpose other than it looks cool. But I like having that red or orange head on there. We're just going to color about 1.5 inches, 2 inches with that marker. I'm going to come right into my whip finish to finish this head off. I'm going to do about a 4 turn head. Pull that tight, make sure that's seated. Use the blade of my scissors to cut that close. And occasionally these legs will pull out of place on you. You can put them into position, and then to trim them, I'm going to sweep those rearward and come in and just trim those a little bit longer than the wing case. I went a little long there. Okay, about like so. And lastly, to secure everything and make sure that none of our work comes undone, I'm just going to hit this thread head with a little bit of Solarez bone dry. And we'll cure that. And there you have it. That is the finished Daysaber Baetis. A very realistic, durable, and effective blueing olive nymph. This is full trout all over the Rockies for me. Colorado, Wyoming has worked really well for me on some of our toughest tailwaters that we have. Cheeseman Canyon, 11 Mile Canyon, the Arkansas River tailwater down in Pueblo. Just an all-around great imitation of the blue-winged olive nymph. You can add a piece of flash on the back if you want to do a flashback. I usually keep it dull like so, that dark wing case, the sparse leg, sparse tail, really slender makeup of the abdomen. Just a great all-around pattern that I know is going to bring you guys a ton of success. So all the materials for this fly are available here at AvidMax. You can order them online. I would love to see your guys' attempt to tie in this thing. Definitely encourage you to share on Instagram and tag me and AvidMax. I'd love to see this in some trout mouths here this coming year. So thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys out on the water.